Hello and welcome to CLEA'S World. I am Clea, and today I would like to share with you more the information I received from a 25th dimension. However, this is a very special series I'm going to put out, and it has to do with a new plant medicine experience I have had that has taken this entire game to the next level. In fact, I have questioned for more than 2 weeks whether I should even release this information, because it truly is really esoteric in the sense of it is really hard as 3D people to comprehend unless you've experienced this. So I will do my best to describe what has happened, and then I will start reading the questions here, because it is so much. And again, this is another reason why I'm splitting this into several videos. It's going to be three or four videos, depending on how long they run, because it is a lot. So we'll see how we do. But before we move forward, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to my channel. And also please do give this video a thumbs up and do share it if you have an opportunity, because while this information may not be what we're used to hearing, I think it is time. This is the reason why I'm getting this information. It is time for this information to be spread. And also do leave me a comment below to let me know how this feels, how it resonates. Let me tell you, I'm still trying to settle in after this experience, so I would understand really any type of reaction to this information. But you'll notice, you'll see, it's very, very different from what we've been taught to believe here. And again, this is mostly because, well, this is because we are going to New Earth, so the stuff is going to be very obvious to us. So we're just preparing in advance, really, is what we're doing. All right, I'm going to start. Well, actually, before I start reading, I am going to tell you what happened. And this was a very long session. Basically, I had a day to myself, and it felt like, I don't know, 45 minutes, but I was basically doing this, or I was in the state of meditation, because really, 25th has explained this to us. When you plant medicine, you're not high. Okay, this is just a term we use because, you know, it kind of defines things, and it makes you feel like, oh, that was outside of me. Now we go back to 3D. All you're doing when you do any type of plant medicine or even anything else in this reality is you're accessing a code that allows you to very quickly switch your focus to a different dimension. And so in this case, I was totally in a different dimension for sure. But it's interesting. If you have seen, and I will link it below this video, if you have seen my first plant medicine experience in the video Message from God, you will know that basically I connected to Source, and I was told I had basically a conversation, a back and forth with Source, with God, and basically discovered that it is music, it is creative music energy. And it was a very comforting, very lovely conversation. And obviously I'm using human words. There are really no words to describe it. But in this case, this experience was extremely different. And it really brought home a lot of the things that 25th has explained to us, which is God is not only love and light, like we want to believe that here. God is everything. And so the limitations we put on God is because we like to think that we're limited. And that's the game we're playing here. We're playing a game of limitations. So of course we have to assume that everything else is like us in that sense, because we do not allow ourselves to realize that we are also infinite, like Source, because we are made in Source's image. We are Source. There is no source outside of us. We are Source. But I don't want to jump ahead. Let me tell you, so what happened, just very, very short outline. Otherwise I could be here all day talking about this. So the very first thing that happened is I, again, immediately connected with Source. As I connected with Source, I started crying. I was desperate. I was begging to be let out. And what I meant is, I was like, please let me out, please let me out, please let me out. And what I meant is I wanted to be let out of this reality, basically this 3D world. And I kept saying, I'm tired of judging. I'm tired of judging. It's too much judging. And why is that? Because judging is what keeps, in the 25th, I was explained this to us before, judging is what keeps this reality solid. We have to judge this reality in order to, the vibrational judgment is what allows us to keep this reality going. And we have to judge it in order to separate ourselves, to believe that we are separate, to believe that there is another from me. I must judge it. And I am just sick and tired of it. And I'm sure you guys are too. And so finally it came out how sick and tired of it I am, that I was literally desperately crying. And this lasted for a little while. I remember it being like, it was surprising to me. And I was begging. I was like, please let me out. And then all of a sudden, as I was doing that, I realized, it's almost like I looked above and I realized that the 25th was watching. And because the 25th was aware of what I was doing or what I was asking. So because I remembered that I have a job to do, what I asked is that it wouldn't make a difference if I could just be let out for a little break, if I could just take a breather. Nothing would happen to the matrix. It would not crumble. So I was begging, say, hey, let me just take a little break. I just need a little break. We don't want it. And I was saying, we don't want it to crumble. I was talking about the entire game. We don't want it to crumble. We just need a little break. And as I said that, I realized, I said, because I was thinking, if I can come out, I said, I don't know why I thought of you guys. And I thought, because this message is spreading to many more than just the people that look like they're watching on YouTube. That's what I mean. Why, we're all one, we're all connected. And so I said, please let me out. And me and my little group, it's just a small group. We're not going to do any damage. Other people are going to be able to hold this up on their own. Just let us, take a break. And I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience in your dreams. It happens to me quite a bit, where you are in a dream and you have the perspective of one person. So you think you're still hovering somewhere on top of the dream, but you know that this person is you. And so you have this perspective and you experience the dream as something that's happening to you in normal reality, even though the dream might be very weird. And all of a sudden, you switch your focus and you become somebody else in the dream. So I'll give you an example in case you haven't had this experience, because this is important. I had a dream a couple of weeks ago where I was in the middle of a bunch of people and they were talking about things that I completely had no interest in. Like, they were golfers, and nothing wrong with golfing. It's just not my thing. And I was with these people, they were talking about golf. So really what the message was is things that were boring to me. Clearly these are 3D people, weren't talking about the 25th or anything else that was spiritual, philosophical, or more interesting to me. And I had my little daughter there. And the whole time I'm thinking, it's almost like they were the only people available, the only people left, which is a little bit how we feel sometimes, or at least how I feel, that I can't really talk about these things with people in my life. And so that dream was along those lines. And I was thinking, I was me in a dream, and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have to marry one of these people because, they're very wealthy and they'll just take care of everything. Now, it's funny, this is definitely not my personality, but just to explain to you. And then as I'm doing all these machinations, I am actually becoming my daughter, and I'm now watching the dream from my daughter's perspective and thinking, oh, thank goodness my mother is going to sacrifice. My mother is going to marry one of these people. Because she also was thinking, I don't like anybody here. Not like as in I dislike them, but as in, this is not really what I'm going for, what I want to experience. But luckily, my mother will take care of the financial situation, so I don't have to also make the same sacrifice. So I thought this was an interesting dream per se already. But basically, this is what I mean by switching perspectives. Like you're able to see a situation from different perspectives within a dream. I don't know if you ever had this happen. It's kind of weird when it happens, but it's also very interesting. So what happened as I was doing this, so again, I was saying, here, let me out with just my small group of people. It's not going to make any difference. The reality is not going to collapse. It's just a few of us. And immediately after that, I switched my focus and I was no longer me. I became source. And it was mind-boggling. Anyway, so as source, I started laughing. I was laughing hysterically. I was like, oh my God, I am so hilarious. In fact, there wasn't even several F-bombs that day. So it was more like, I am F hilarious. I am begging myself to be let out. I can do whatever I want. This is so hilarious. I am so hilarious. And that went on for a little while. And after that, I, as source, realized, started looking around and became extremely bored. I was bored out of my mind. And then I realized, I looked around and I said, oh my God, what have I done? I finally awoken from my slumber. What have I done? And what this was referring to was this, basically this 3D planet we created, this reality that is so unbalanced that it's tedious, it's just boring. So as source, I was so disappointed. I was like, oh, this is not, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to take all of this down. This is gone. We're done with this. And I could go on, but you get the gist. So it was more about, I don't want to give the impression that I felt source, I became source, and source was evil. There was no evil there. It was just a logical. First of all, the 25th has told us over and over that, we're bored. There's nothing. As infinite beings, as eternal beings, we're bored because eternity is forever. We don't even have a concept of that here. And so I felt that. And then there was the part where, looking around, you're like, this is not acceptable. This is not good. And I'm going to change this. I'm going to take this down. And so this is the premise to the questions, because they explain everything that happened. And I've had several breakthroughs after this. One is the fact of realizing, obviously, that we are source. We say this, that we are source, we're made of source, but we don't actually believe it because we want to keep that curtain between us and the truth. So the fact that I became source, and it's not I as Clea, this is a shell, this is nothing. The fact that I connected into source as a source that I am, it's like source becoming aware of itself. Okay, this could happen, and I know it happens with plant medicine to lots of people. So I just don't know that I have run into this particular experience before, but for me it was shocking. I not only I couldn't expect it, but I've had to think about it a lot and let it percolate for a while before wrapping my mind around it. But I have integrated this, and this is why I want to show this with you. I want to share this with you because I think it's important. And that's why I'm making probably a 3-4 part video series about this, because it is so much. But so this was the premise, and the questions that come relate to this. I do want to say one thing. I have had another breakthrough about a week ago about this. And I do want to say it because I don't want to forget to say it. What I realized is that, do you guys remember when we had the first video, I made the first video about message from God, and I said, it was a misunderstanding, and we thought pain would be a good solution to create solidity in this on this planet, to keep this reality solid and concrete, looking to our 3D eyes. Basically, after experiencing that tediousness, this extreme boredom that came upon me as source, I realized that source, us, we are willing to do whatever it takes to avoid that boredom. We are willing to, we would rather be desperate, in tears, rather than feel bored. We'd be willing to do anything to not feel bored. Now, does it mean that we don't prefer being happy and joyous? Of course. But anything really, what I understood would really seeped into my heart, this understanding. One thing is knowing things, at the mind level, intellectual level. One thing is you know it with your feelings and you understand it. And the fact is that anything really is preferable to that boredom. And this is why we created this whole thing. And again, I had questions about this as well. So that's why I wanted to provide this promise. All right, so I'm going to start reading from the questions. Carolyn. So Claire would like to ask some questions in regards to an experience that she and Carolyn had a few weeks ago. What happened during the last time that Claire had plant medicine? She believed she was supposed to remember so she could share, but was it so that she could intend the takedown to happen? Let me explain this question before I move forward. We have been told, and I have shared this with you, I've been told a long time ago, I think it was my first or second session, that I was supposed to remember one of the reasons I am here is because I can remember quickly. And I realize now remembering quickly simply means that you have set yourself up to awaken, like all of us. If you're watching this, that's your setup, okay? You're not in a 3D chamber. You want to awaken, you want to know more, you're seeking. Excuse me. And so because of this, basically I have the ability, like many others here, to remember quickly. And I was told, or I thought, that the reason for this, why this was needed, is because there are many people that need this information. And I thought it was this information that I was getting from the 25th dimension, right? Which I've been sharing with you for that reason. But then when I had this experience, I thought, was I supposed to remember? Did I set myself up to remember? Because we set ourselves up on this path. You guys know this. We leave ourselves clues to find. So was I supposed to remember, to basically remember myself as source? And again, not me, Claire, as source. One, we are one, okay? So when it's I, it's us, but there is no us. It's me, it's you, okay? There's only you and there's only me. There's one person, all right? And the 25th has told us already many times, there is no collective, there is no us, okay? We say us because it's easier from our perspective to think of us as being separate, but really we are one. And so basically the point is, was I supposed as source to remember myself so I could will the takedown to happen? In other words, had I not remembered, would I have been able to will the takedown to happen? Would the takedown have happened? So this is what was going on in my mind. And so that's why I want to share this answer with you, because all this stuff is completely mind-blowing, guys. All right, so I'm going to repeat the question. It should make more sense now. So what happened during the last time that Clea had plant medicine? She believed she was supposed to remember so she could share. But was it so that she could intend the takedown to happen? Me. There is no time. Everything is happening now. This was the will of Source, and we are Source. And so, yes, while we are trying here to split the hair, as in what happened first and what happened second, it's like a chicken and egg situation. What happened first and what happened second? And they were laughing. It always happened. It all happened at the same time. So yes, absolutely. When she willed as Source, when she willed this to be taken down is when it happened, but it had already happened, meaning it was always happening. So what came first? I mean, really, if we're aware of the fact that there is no time, nothing came first. There is no first and second. So yes, the moment that she experienced it, that's where her focus is. That's what the moment that it was willed. Just because in our personal experience, it came at a certain time in a certain sequence, we already know there is no sequence. So the sequence was just the way the sequence was set up, but there is no sequence. When she was there willing that, it was the present. Even now it is the present. Even now it is happening. So I want to make a couple of notes here. So again, we're running into this concept of there is no time and how it truly does work. And with the fact that everything is already available and you're simply switching your focus from one thing to the other, and all of a sudden that becomes known to you because you're focusing on it. But in your experience, in our experience as 3D people from this, and not just 3D people, the aliens experience it the same way. They believe in time too. You weren't aware of it before, and therefore in this part of your experience, you didn't know was available. So this is the past. And then after this watershed moment, you become aware of this is the future. And that's why time is such a good point of reference. But really here we're running into the fact that there really is no time. So what was I experiencing? What they're saying is that when I experienced it as Clea that day, then that's when it was real to me, when it was now to me. But the fact is, in the real reality, not what we experience here, it was always happening, meaning that if any of you goes in today or in a year and has the same experience, it's going to feel real to you in that moment because it is happening now. There's only now. So I made 2 notes here about this. For example, which is funny, and this comes very naturally to me now, this stuff, because again, I think about this concept of time so much, is that my daughter has the habit of always asking me, when are we going to get home? When are we going to be home? And it's become, because obviously, you know, if anybody has children, you know, they can ask a lot of times. It's become a habit for me to say, we will be home the second and we're home. As soon as we're home, you'll know we're there, we're home. And I say it with a straight face now because it's true. That's how it works. That's the new now is when we're home, is the new now is where we're paying attention to, what we're focusing on, what we're realizing is they're available. So until we're in that experience, we're not in that experience, just as simply as that. So the other thing is that how this feels to me is like a crystal ball, almost like a pensive. And it's almost like you can go in, and I'm thinking a little bit of Harry Potter here, a Dumbledore, where you can go in. Now he was using it to take thoughts or memories out of his mind, if you guys have seen the movies or read the books, and put them in this crystal ball, which is called a pensive. But you could also go in and see Dumbledore's memories. So if I looked at that, I would be able to see everything that's happened to him in real time. You're now in the pensive, in the crystal ball, and you're seeing things as they're happening right now. They didn't happen in the past. They're real to you. And that's exactly how this feels. Like, even though I was watching the scene is always available, always now. And that's how it kind of made sense to myself, how I made sense of it for my own purposes of thinking about this. So hopefully that helps. Carolyn, would a takedown not have happened as she not remembered that she's source, since it's when she remembered that she decided to take this down? Me, yes and no. Meaning that she's conflating actually 2 different things. So again, she's thinking of it in sequential terms, like all these elements were chained together to get to that point. And yes, they were, but they're all happening at the same time. So would it have happened if she had not witnessed it, or if she had not willed it? No, it wouldn't have happened because it was willed. That's why the takedown is happening. It was willed. Obviously, it wasn't she as Clea, it was she as source. So source willed it. We are all source. So it was willed, and therefore she became aware of the fact that it was willed when she became aware of it. But it wasn't willed when she became aware of it, in the sense that it was always willed. Now, did she make it happen? Yes, as source, what she experienced was source making it happen. And because she is source, just like everybody else, then yes, it was happening. It only happened because it was willed. But again, so basically I witnessed what was happening in the mind of source as source was going through this process, is what it is. And so again, they were explaining, so it was happening, it only happened because it was willed. But again, Carolyn, so essentially that was a trigger. So again, she's referring to the fact that me remembering was the trigger. Me as source remembering was the trigger. Me, that was the trigger. But it didn't happen after. It didn't have to even happen in a certain way. It was already happening, if you wish to say that. And here's Tommy crashing the source video. It was already happening, if you wish to say that, except that what she experienced was that there is no time. So it happened when it happened. When she experienced it, it was all present. If you, Carolyn, go in and have this experience, it will happen to you the second that you experience it, because it's present. It's happening right now. There is no past. There is no future. Carolyn. So as we are doing this here today in this room right now, and we're speaking about New Earth, are we currently on New Earth? Me. We are everywhere. We're in the 25th, really, hanging out right now. Carolyn, I like hanging out in the 25th, me, but we do require entertainment because goodness, and they were laughing. Carolyn, yes, we do. Is Clea source, or is she one of the 12,000, or both? Me. So we are all everything. And when we speak of the 12,000, we like to say it's a number, right? It's another way we know there is many. There is not many. This is the game that we play in the matrix. So yes, she is source. Of course she's source. We are source. There's one source, one person. I know, guys, these things are so hard to wrap our minds around. Gosh, they were in the 25th right now, and we are source, and there is no time. It's a lot. But I have a feeling that it's coming together. You know, the more we get this information and we discuss this stuff and we think about it on our own, I do feel like I'm personally making progress here. Carolyn. So source is playing at being one of the 12,000. Me. Source plays at everything. Source is everything. But because everything source does is creative, it ripples out, we ripple out, we're all creative. And every little piece of source, if you want to think about it in portions, in dosages, and they were laughing, in units, every little piece of source is creative. And this is what we do. This is source. The 25th is source. We are source. All of us are source. We are made from source, of source. We are source. Carolyn. So is the 25th separate from source, or is it that something we like to believe? And she's asking it because I don't know if you guys remember the very first video I put out. I remember I was here seeing all this darkness in front of me. I was there as essence. I was in the 25th, but I remember seeing light back here. So spatially, there was a distance or a different space from what we were taking on, in the space that we were taking. And it was light because it was where source was. So it's a fair question here. Is the 25th separate from source, or is that something we like to believe? Me. We like to believe that, but there is no separation. We like to think in terms of there's space, and then there's something that takes space, and then there's nothing in between. So for example, between me and you now, and they're referring to Carolyn, to me, Clea, and Carolyn sitting there close to me, we could say that there is space, but is there space? There is no space. There is no emptiness, and there is no space. Carolyn, understood. So she would like to know why was she merciless and intolerant as source during the experience she had, and then for 2 days after? So this, I want to explain this. I felt it wasn't an evil feeling. I wasn't feeling evil or unjust or capricious or anything of the kind. What I meant is that I was feeling, when I wrote this question, I was feeling different from how I feel my daily life, which is, I want to help this person, or, like merciful, right? Or you want to alleviate things, that kind of thing. I felt just very objective, just like looking around saying, this is not good. I'm going to take this down. And I wanted to understand, because again, they have told us that source is everything. So source is not just what we like to think of, which is love. Source is everything. It's created everything, can feel any way it wants. There is no judgment. We do this here. We judge, right? We judge certain ways of being as being inferior, as being unpleasant, okay? But I wanted to do this because this feeling that I had, which was very detached, is what it was. If I had to use not so much merciless, but more detached, like I was just observing things and saying, no, didn't come out right. I was observing, just to give an example, I was observing my body as in, this is such a low lack of standards. I mean, what's up with these lines on my face? What's up with, I gained a little weight during the pandemic. I'm like, just low standards. What is going on here? And all this dark in the world, I've had enough. This is it. That kind of thing, okay? And so she's asking what really happened for the 2 days after, where I kept basically carrying that way of thinking with me, where I was extremely detached from everything. It was very strange. Me. She felt what happened at source level when the decision was made. Basically, simply, I was feeling how source was feeling, because again, I am source. So it was just remembering how source felt when the decision to take this down happened. Carolyn. And so was that disappointment? Me. It was disappointment. Not disappointment as in, because everything is perfectly fine and acceptable. Not disappointment is when you see something outside of yourself and say, oh, you've disappointed me. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. It's not that. This is a very 3D way of thinking about it. It was disappointment as in, oh, I thought it would turn out better. It would be more fun, you know, let's do it this way now. It was disappointment as in, you just expected something to be different. And so the intolerance came from the fact that, oh, this has really turned out not great. It's almost like when you make a cake and it doesn't come out right. Carolyn, it's disappointing. Me, yeah, but it's not a judgment like, oh, you're a bad cake. And they were, they were laughing. Carolyn was laughing, 25th was laughing, because they were like, you're a bad cake. It's more like, oh, okay. And we change it. That's exactly what she felt, that it was like, oh God, this is boring. This is terrible. This is like, what was I thinking? I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. And this is not acceptable. This is not a good looking cake. I messed up the decoration here. I messed up. It was like that. And all of a sudden, of course, she's judging. She, from her personal experience, she's judging every aspect of what this looks like, including herself. She's looking at her body and saying, oh my goodness, this is such a lack of standards. This is not what we want. We want a much greater, which again, it makes sense, right? That's why we're going to have different avatars where we go. We want to do so much better next time, that kind of thing. So this was interesting. I made a note for myself because I basically, while I was identifying or feeling what source felt, because again, it's inside of us, all right? We're energy, we're indivisible. I also was using my mind, my personality, my filter, basically the filter of my existence here to judge things, which is interesting. So I was judging. It was a source that was judging. So I was living that experience from both perspectives. Again, like in the dream that I was telling you about. So this was fascinating to me. Carolyn. So this outlook is both source and personal. Me, of course, because we do filter things, we can. In order for us to understand even these concepts that we are expressing right now, what do you have to do? You have to relate it to something that you can recognize, because otherwise we could be here speaking Chinese to you. You would have no clue what we're talking about, right? So not only we speak English, so you may understand us, but we also use a lot of examples and relate to things that are relatable to you. And this is exactly what happens. Any experience you have like the experience Clea's had, while she's connecting with source and she's tapped in, like all of us, always, you also have to bring in what is relevant to you so that you can understand it. So Clea is not by chance, because again, there is no time. It's not by chance that Clea is always bored or has felt the boredom. I'm not learning anything new and not experiencing anything new. Before, before last year, before she finally started openly connecting with us. And this is the same boredom that source feels, because again, we're one, there is no separation. But we also have to allow for the fact that we are separate in the matrix. We like to believe that we're separate. So that's what we're discussing now. So even the intolerance, basically what she did is she translated this being done with all the stuff that did not turn out the way you wanted it and be like, oh, all of us, my goodness, what have we done? How could we let ourselves get like this? And that's what it was. And in fact, very quickly resolved itself. After 2 days, she was back to normal. And the good thing that she did is she never judged it. She never judged, like, say, oh my goodness, source is evil, or oh my God, I'm being evil, I'm not liking, this and that. She realized, and we have said this over and over again, source is not only love, source is everything. Because we know this. Because if we didn't think of ourselves as separate, if we are source, how are we? We are everything. None of us is just love and light every day. So by default, it cannot, this is a religious concept that's been introduced, where we want to believe so much in the difference, in the distance, in the separation between us and others, that we pretend that source is different from us. And therefore, since we are flawed, we think of ourselves as being flawed because we can always be all love and light. Therefore, source must be love and light. And so we're always longing to be more like that. The truth is, we are an aspect of source. And therefore, we can look at ourselves and see what source is like. This is not to take source down and be like, oh my gosh, how could you see that? How could you say that of God? This is truly what it is. We are everything. All these experiences, all these feelings we have, they're all equal. So what happened is that what she did well in the past, she would have judged it. She would have said, oh my goodness, this is awful. I'm being merciless. I'm being unloving. This time she understood. And this was the breakthrough. She understood what it means to know that you are everything. Why did this breakthrough come? Because this is exactly what is going to become more common knowledge when we are on New Earth. This is the work that she's doing so that she can pass on this experience to the collective on New Earth. Basically, what she's bringing is the fact that we are everything and we are one. And therefore, everything is inside of us. And we talk about this and we try to wrap our minds around this concept. The truth is, once we feel it, and she felt it, she now knows what it feels like to be everything, where you don't have to judge anything. What does it mean to be intolerant? You can be disappointed in something that you created. You're not just judging anything outside of you. You're just saying, you know what? I did this, but I would have liked it better if it came out this way. What is wrong with that? She wasn't judging other people. She was judging the way that we made this creation, that she created this to look like, because we all create what's outside of us. And that's what she understood. This was the breakthrough. All right, guys, I hope that I haven't completely blown your minds with this one. I am still, like, even reading it now for you guys, I am still, it's a lot. It's a lot. I know some of the reactions can be, oh, I'm not sore. We're going to have to get over this, because we hear these things, we don't want to believe them, that we are source, we want to believe that God is a separate entity from us, and this is just not going to cut it anymore, because the fact is, this separation is what has caused the pain and the imbalance. especially on this planet, but really in the entire multiverse, there's a lot of darkness because we do like to believe we are separate, and we like to believe that some of us are good, whereas others are bad. And the 25th keeps on telling us we are all one. These are our friends. This is just a game. So this is why I am putting this information out there, because I know and I trust that many of you are ready for this, even though it is a lot, I understand. And so please do let me know in the comments below what you think about this. All right, take care. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.